So hags to me are kind of like the perfect villain because they all fall somewhere on the continuum of like mischievous to just incredibly evil. They're also familiar to a lot of people. I think particularly, so many cultures, Western cultures in particular, have some sort of hag in their folklore, whether it's like a Hansel and Gretel situation or Baba Yaga in like Slavic folklore, or like when I was doing some research on hags, it was like every Western European culture basically has a hag.
Like you said, Baba Yaga, the proper noun hags versus like just the standard witch in the wood trope. Don't go out into the swamp because there's a scary old lady there. Everybody knows that.
I like that they're so familiar to so many people because, as someone who is kind of a nerd in some ways, but not in others, I don't really have a lot of familiarity with what I have found to be like familiar like tropes to other gamers. And so like, a lot of times like someone will be like, like Boba Fett. And I'm like, I don't know, that has no meaning to me. Or like, play them like this captain on Star Trek. And I don't know what that means. And I really like when references are like a little bit more likely to be things that more people can pick up on. You have a greater chance at a table of like calling up an image that many people are familiar with hag versus like a D&D monster that like Gary Gygax invented.
If you say lich or kobold or like those are not things that everybody necessarily has a point of reference for.
But if you say hag or werewolf or vampire, these things resonate with all of us in some way. And that does make it, and that is interesting because the only thing that really makes something a monster is if we all agree it's a monster. So this idea that we all have that this thing is a monster makes something more monstrous. And it does make it more impactful in a game when you can all be there in that moment at the same time.
Because so many hags in fairy tales have very similar like awful inclinations and powers. I think, if you even know a little bit about, again, like if you've read Hansel and Gretel, who like the witch in that like eats children, like you sort of have a sense of like just exactly kind of like how depraved hags can be, and that's scary.
A lot of descriptions of hags, as previously mentioned, have a lot of heavy roots in misogyny. It's an ugly, old woman who is unwanted by society. When I have a party wander into a room and there's a hag there, they don't necessarily know something's wrong until things have gone wrong, and that's a fun monster.
One of the things that's like really interesting about the hag, as steeped in misogyny as and like normative gender roles as the hag lore, at least in 5th edition D&D, is, there's some stuff in there that is like well done. For example, hags have super duper long lifespans, like thousands of years. Hags are really old, so like they no longer give a fuck. They're not welcome in the Feywild, and they just don't care. And that's like a really funny kind of on the nose take about Western womanhood. It's like, after you get to be 40, girlfriend, don't worry, because you won't care anymore. And it's like kind of true, actually.